repetitive, boring, and stale. We don't love one another, we love teams and mantras. The world holds billions of individuals, but we are so quick to reduce that number to 3 or 4. The world need not be armies. As Emerson notes, we recruit each to the banner, and we become weaker. Every opinion has an opposite, which are sometimes equal. If we choose one, another will suffer. It brings opposition. All positions are extreme, and all views require antagonism. We need not rejoice or weep in response to contradictions. The man who is self-reliant and receptive reaches conclusions intentionally, with recognition that opposing ideas carry validity. Be wary of those groups who claim their ideas to be perfected. This is an impossible task. By being receptive, we can recognize others' ideas and even understand them. We can detect their faults, their rewards, and understand what our soul desires to earn and sacrifice. The world likes to hurl regrets at us as proof for the justness of its operating procedures, for the rightness of conformity, systems, and accepted syntax. But do not let this be proof. Societal expectations murder our experiences in life. They raise the stakes and can force us into despondence. We all fail at things. We will inevitably do so. When the world expects us to hit and we miss, we sink into misery. But imagine, Emerson suggests, the man who is guided only by his own soul and not by the ethics of the world, undeterred by so-called failure. He may have a dozen careers in his life, and each time he lands like the house cat on his feet. He does not postpone his life with anxieties about failure, nor over miseries once he has failed. Instead, he simply lives. In one of his more controversial moments, Emerson takes aim at the idea of charity. A clumsy reading of self-reliance would indicate that Emerson just rejects outright the notion of charitable deeds. But this is false. In Self-Reliance, he writes, "There is a class of persons to whom by all spiritual affinity I am bought and sold. For them I will go to prison if need be." It is not charity which he eschews, but the wanton institutionalization of good deeds, the idea that we can pay a tithe and that alone makes us good people. Emerson rejects the idea that we must be forced to charity out of obligation or pressure to do what the world has told us is correct. We are so quick to pay for the sufferings of others, be it through charities, political campaigns, relief efforts, or colleges. We broadcast our participation in these things and turn our life into a show. But as Emerson notes, life is for itself and not for spectacle. Goodness, bought, paid, and broadcasted to the world is no sort of goodness at all. Do not be good because the world insists it or because you feel obligated, but instead act because your soul directs you to. Hurl yourself at the causes and people which are relevant and deserving of your genius and cast off the rest. Are you a successful Reliance is not a simple concept, but like the most complex things of all, it has anatomy. This anatomy consists of 3 parts: self-trust, self-criticism, and receptiveness. Emerson writes, "What have I to do with the sacredness of traditions if I live wholly from within?" My friend suggested, "But these impulses may be from below, not from above." I replied, "They do not seem to me to be such, but if I am the devil's child, I will live then from the devil." Emerson tells us to live by our own law, that no system is sacred except that of our own nature. He notes he is ashamed at how easily we capitulate to badges, names, societies, and institutions. Even Emerson himself falls victim to this, noting that well-spoken individuals affect him more than is right. But in totality, we should resist this. We must live only to, by, and with ourselves. This type of goodness, Emerson says, has an edge. It will not accept metrics of proper conduct or convention, but it is goodness, and it will lead us to paradise. We should also not ignore the role of self-criticism within Emerson's idea of self-reliance. He does not tell us to blindly accept whatever conclusion we stumble upon. He does not insist that we are all perfect. In another piece called Circles, Emerson tells us that, quote, "The way of life is abandonment." We must be constantly always ready to abandon old ideas and replace them with the new. We cannot anchor ourselves with stale ideas, or we ourselves become stale. We live chained to antiques, ignoring the new material which we could otherwise experience. Self-reliance is not "I'm always right." It is "I can always be right." By trusting our instincts and recognizing when things feel wrong or false, our radar becomes tuned to the world, and we can explore the endless new ideas our world will present. Vanities which our society is so quick to reward, things like consistency or pride, inhibit our ability to change our ideas, so we must resist these things. In another work titled Intellect, Emerson writes, "Truth is our element of life. Yet if a man fasten his attention on a single aspect of truth and apply himself to that alone for a long time, the truth becomes distorted and not itself, but falsehood." When we hold on to ideas for the sake of consistency, acceptance, or just laziness, truths are mutated into lies. We do not only the new. Emerson notes the power of other opinions as not purely antagonistic, but instead as